All right. Now, we do not have any ADAs anymore. So instead, I'm going to call a slight audible and thank the BPC. Kieran has been on here more than anybody other than my mother, but
He needs to get the GMOAT tattoo, right?
he's getting a t-shirt.
Okay.
He can start
Full
with
jacket.
that. I'm not paying for tattoos yet. And I also don't know how he is with needles. Because I'm definitely not getting a tattoo anytime soon. Anyway, that being said, his program does have what I felt is a very good idea and should be universally shared because movies are meant to be gifts shared between friends. And so the gift exchange or movie exchange that his show does, originally, it was our conceit that the three of us were going to gift Kieran Bull Durham. I have no idea whether he is watching that or not. He says he will get it done. I don't know. We'll ask him next week and we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, he was supposed to share a movie for each of us in return. We have not yet received such movies. I'm sure he's a very busy man now that he's in a relationship and he's a business owner and whatever. I'm going to make no judgments on a friend of mine. He can do as he please, and I'm sure he will share with us in the very near future his gifts when he so chooses. That being said, we gifted each other some movies. In my particular case, you basically gifted not only me, but my father, because I've been up here spending the holidays with him, whether he likes it or not. And so we've all watched movies that we exchanged for the others. So, who would like to start on what they gave out and received?
I'll jump in real quick, I guess. My whole memory for the last 2 weeks is pretty foggy with the holidays and just kids and everything. So I kind of remember what I did. I know for a fact, Tom, you gave me a show to watch because you had to bend the rules because you just can't stick to something normal like giving me a movie, even though I have 300 on my watch list on Letterboxd. But whatever.
Again, when you pointed that out to me, I went through your entire letterbox and there was one movie that was on your to watch list that is one I had seen. And by extension, it was not a film I personally would have recommended to you. If anyone in this group were to recommend that to you, it's a favorite of my father's, A Bridge Too Far.
Which I'm dying to. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Sean Connery, Richard Attenborough, I believe, right, directed it.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know if did he direct it?
Yes.
Oh,
I think
okay.
so.
Yep.
Yeah, I look for. You should have given that to me. I definitely would have gotten around to it. But
Yes, a 3.5 hour war epic versus 2 episodes of only murders in the building. Oh
so let
no.
me
Oh
let me
no.
let me explain really quickly. The problem with gifting someone to start watching a television show is you're effectively saying you're committed to this show now because
No.
I am I you know this about me, Tom. I'm a completionist by nature.
Oh.
I can't just like watch two random episodes of a show and never go back to it again. That's not how my brain works. So
Oh
out of
no.
the goodness of my heart, I watched 2 episodes of Only Murders in the Building, and now at some point over the rest of my life, I'm gonna have to watch the rest of that damn show. So thank you for that. The first episode was great. I had a lot of fun with it. It was a good time. Steve Martin, Martin Short are two of my favorites. Selena Gomez was pretty good. She wasn't great, but she was pretty good. Second episode, I found myself a lot less captivated by, and so it was easier for me to go, okay, I've seen 2 episodes. I can kind of put this on the side. I have to watch so many movies at all times that I can only keep up with about one show at a time. And Severance is getting ready to start here in like a week or two, so that'll be like the one show I'm watching religiously. So Only Murders can kind of fall down the pecking order. And then the two movies I doled out to the two of you, and I have no idea what you think about either of them. Tom, I gave you 2011's Take Shelter, the wonderful Jeff Nichols film that stars Michael Shannon. And Sarah, I gave you Paul Verhoeven's often nobody talks about this movie, but it's from 2021. Maybe it's because it came out during the pandemic and people just didn't see it, but it's called Benedetta, and I would highly recommend people checking it out if you're into Paul Verhoeven films because it's definitely transgressive and provocative, and I can't wait to hear what the two of you thought about those movies.
What did you watch for Sarah, by the way?
I haven't gotten around to it yet. She gifted us those. I know. God, Sarah, you gave us all those great movies. I'm blanking on who the star of them was, but I haven't gotten to him yet.
Red Skelton.
Skeleton. There we go. So that's on the watch list at some point. But I've basically been in a movie theater for the last week because I finally had a week to myself, and I just like sat in the movie theater all day, every day.
The world's
See,
smallest
Tom-
violin crying out for Andrew.
See, Tom, what you have to do is you have to find a limited TV series to assign Andrew, which translates to a 10-hour movie, right? Because previously
Exactly.
Andrew and I had been having a conversation about a show that I wanted him to watch after we discussed The Substance, and that was the TV series that was released right after the pandemic, Brave New World, which had Demi Moore is in it. And I know that he's going to love it, but it was canceled after one season. So it's a finite amount of commitment.
But Murders in the Building is 10 half-hour episodes. It's a 5-hour movie. And each
There's like
season
3
is
seasons.
individualized.
4 now, going on 5.
Okay, so I've got 40 hours worth of my life, and it's going to continue. It's not like the show's going to stop
Hold
all
on,
of a
hold
sudden.
it.
So
It's not 40 hours. Your math
I know.
is
I'm just
wrong.
making up. I'm just making up a number. I'm just throwing
It's
a number
20
out there.
hours.
But it's one of those things where it's like I don't want a commitment that I'm going to have to stick with for potentially another 10 years of my life. I'm okay with.
You can watch
I'm okay
one
with
season
don't have
and the
to.
end.
The whole point was
I'm a completionist.
Dip your toe in and see if it's something you like. And if
Tom,
not,
you've known me Tom, you've known me long enough. Do I dip my toe into anything?
No, but it's probably healthier for you to not go back to it now.
Well, that's probably why you have cinefungus.
I've got a cream for it though.
But the problem is he's a cinemasochist.
That's right. I mean, it's a lose-lose situation. I can't get out of it.
Except it's not cinema, so you're just a masochist.
Both things can
Fair.
be true.
All right. Sarah, would you like to go next, or would you like me to
You go ahead.
jump in? Okay. So in this particular case, you gave us 3 films, Sarah, that we could choose between. Technically, I've seen 2 out of the 3. And the other one, as I mentioned in our group chat today, is recording, I believe, at 7:45 a.m. on TCM tomorrow morning.
Woohoo!
Tom, Dick, and Harry. The film you said was not possible to find. And
I said it wasn't on streaming.
that is true. That is true.
Yeah, I had to buy it on DVD, one of like 3 DVDs that I own. So Tom, Dick, and Harry, Barry Lyndon, and Skippy from 1931.
That's insanity.
To be fair, we have only had to purchase one Blu-ray for the life of this show, and it was Judgment at Nuremberg, which I could not find on anywhere.
Yeah.
So I am proud to own that as a Blu-ray. But I think that is the only hard disc of anything I've bought in the last 8 years. I move too often, Andrew. It's just, no. I downsize, I minimalize, I don't collect things anymore. It's just not.
He's up in the air.
So you're actually going to watch Tom, Dick, and Harry?
Yes.
Yay!
So,
that's exciting.
But for the 2 that my father and I have watched, we rented both of the Red Skelton films that you included. The second of which escapes me, but the first is a Southern Yankee, which I did find very enjoyable, even though I'm not a particular physical humor fan, as my father can attest, or anyone that's listened to the Pink Panther episode. Slapstick like that is not necessarily my forte. I get much more into intellectual and sarcastic humor. And there was just enough of that there, that level of goofiness, that it did tickle me enough to keep me entertained and engaged. However, what was it? The
Fuller Brush Man?
Fuller Brush Man. I didn't find quite as engaging. I thought it was a lot drier. I thought it relied a little bit more on the physical aspects of things, and to more varying degrees of success. However, I did find another Skelton film, I think that's going to be on TCM tomorrow, that I'm also recording. So we'll try him out, much in the same way I was surprised at liking the Marx Brothers several years ago when I first tried them. I'm willing to give this a few more opportunities.
Yay! That makes me
I
happy.
am just tip you off. Okay, my mother recorded me. She had a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Okay, I am about 3 years old, and she's asking me what I like, and the recording says Red Skelton and Dick Dyke.
Excellent.
So I'm 3 years old, and at that point in time, and I remember faithfully every Sunday night watching Red Skelton on CBS, and I'd always get so bummed because he would take summers off, and so there was a replacement show,
Right.
and it'd be like, oh, So yes, so this was a treat for me. I have not seen those films, but I love Red Skelton. In fact, he kind of went on tour in colleges late in life, back in the late 70s, early 80s, when trying to reconnect with younger people, and they did the shows on HBO. They recorded them and did them on HBO, and I enjoyed those because it brought back the whole days of him as a clown, Clem Cadiddle Hopper. So yeah,
Now, obviously, I gave Andrew Only Murders in the Building. He gave me Take Shelter. Now, this was a very difficult movie for me to get into. It's a very heavy movie. It's somewhat intense for a good portion of it. I think that the story played out very, very slowly for me. And I really had a hard time investing in it until maybe the last half an hour, 20 minutes. And I think I got into portions of it, but it still leaves me a little bit cold. So, unfortunately, where I've responded a little bit better to other Jeff Nichols movies, this one didn't really connect with me in the way that I would have liked.
I did not see all of it. I saw parts of it that while I was still up, Tom was tending to watch it later on when I'm normally heading to bed.
Well, that's because you have always said Michael Shannon films to you tend to be very odd, and so you don't particularly like watching any movie that he's in.
Well, and we won't discuss a Revolutionary Road. Ugh. But it kind of struck a chord with me because that's my clients. That's who I'm helping. People who all of a sudden have these lives that they're working and they're being productive and they're doing stuff, and then boom. And it always happens. I can tell you right now, things like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, they happen when you're in your 30s, and they tend to happen again when you're in your mid 50s. And it's like you can have a perfectly normal life, and then all of a sudden your body chemistry changes, and it's a shit show. And I had a lot of empathy for the character as he's going through that process, and I could understand it and see it, and see it in my own clients.
Yeah, I would definitely say, in my opinion, the reason why I gave it to you, Tom, is I think well, Michael Shannon was a revised Oscar winner on season one of my show in 2011. I was surprised I nominated him for this movie for this performance. I was surprised it won the online vote because it's such a small scale movie. I didn't think it was going to move the needle, and so it winning kind of was like, I was like, okay, maybe there is more of an audience for this movie than I thought, because I felt I was very much in the minority with it, but I was hoping you might grab onto it. I just found it really interesting the way it told a story about mental health
Mm.
that was sort of outside the norm of the way a lot of movies represent what someone's seeing in their head. And I'm fascinated what your thought is, without maybe spoiling too much, about the end, because the end is incredibly ambiguous,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's not. And so I'm wondering where you stood on the ending, because I've watched the film 6 or 7 times probably at this point, and every time I've I feel a little differently about the ending and what I think it represents, and so I'm wondering where you stand after a first watch.
I could interpret it in a couple of different ways, but because it leaves it somewhat open ended, and frankly, I felt that it was weaving back and forth on whether he's actually having a mental breakdown or not. And as such, I didn't know whether this was one of those films where he's actually having a serious issue or he's not. And so because I could never quite make up my mind from that, I couldn't really engage with it being that kind of movie. In a different way, like we discussed for the 2014 episode, Still Alice, that is told from the perspective of those people experiencing her issues. And so I could understand and appreciate that much more, even though it's a very difficult and heavy film. But this one, I had a difficulty really kind of getting into his shoes because I wasn't sure, is what he's experiencing some supernatural part of it or is it not? And so I'm sure everybody has their own different take on it. It just left me unclear as to where the movie was going and what I'm supposed to take away from it. But that's part of my difficulty.
Yeah, I wanted to throw something a little ambiguous at you just to, I don't think it's your comfort zone maybe
No,
necessarily.
no,
And
not
so
really.
I thought I would kind of push you just to touch in that direction. I will just quickly say in my personal opinion right now, I might feel differently the next time I watch it, but I think for me the fundamental takeaway from the ending, and I'm not going to like spoil it for people necessarily, but I think it's a recognition that for the first time he and his wife are on the same page and they're both seeing his struggles together. And so I don't think it matters if what the ending is or isn't is. I think it's just a matter of him and his wife for the first time in the course of that film being on the same page together. And I find that really powerful, that the ambiguity isn't the important question or the important final takeaway. It's that they're finally on the same page. They're seeing the same thing together. They're sort of in the same mode together, which is really fascinating to me.
I get what you mean. I always took it as it was the reality of the movie because I thought that the dream sequences were a little bit extra normal, but I could also be open to the argument that says this is just another dream sequence by him. So it's open for variety of thought. It's frankly a film that I'm surprised it hasn't probably come up in my film discussion group because that kind of ambiguous ending leads itself to a group discussion kind of book report type thing.
Well, now I've given it to you to bring to said group. So there you go. Merry Christmas.
And on the flip side, I gave Sarah Witness for the Prosecution, a legal film,
Ooh.
and our shared love of legal dramas. So, Sarah, Witness for the Prosecution.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you for taking the chance on the movies that I said you could choose from. They were supposed to be absolutely innocuous, frivolous, silly, brainless. And I just really appreciate that you just ran with it because there wasn't supposed to be any sort of intellectual stimulation going on with those films whatsoever. They're films that my dad loved growing up, and then he showed them to me when I was growing up, and it's just one of those fuzzy feelings watching them and being silly, and it's totally okay if you liked one more than the other. I'm just so excited that you gave it a chance. And Dana, I'm thrilled that you liked them. That makes me so happy. Your choice for Witness for the Prosecution is a film I've never seen, and it's been on my list for I don't know how many years, and it's perfect in every way in terms of your choice for me and what I'm interested in. I absolutely love courtroom dramas. I love that era of filmmaking. Seeing Marlene Dietrich, fantastic. Tyrone Power is very, very good in this role. I don't know if I generally like him as an actor, but I think he was very, very effective. And the twists that happen in the film were spot on. I told my dad that you had gifted it to me and I had watched it, and he said, "Oh yeah, I was in a stage production of it and I was terrible in it." And I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I watched it that same day that you gifted it because I was so excited. And so I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you. Perfect choice. And then Andrew's choice, Benedetta, I was going to also try to watch it immediately, but I cannot because it's a French film. So everything is in French, but it takes place in Italy. And I was in the middle of grading final exam essays. So I couldn't put it on because I had to read it. So I said, I'll have to get to it eventually. And then I forgot. So I watched it last night. Holy shit, Andrew. Holy shit. It was so good. So good. I, in general, really, really like Paul Verhoeven. I feel a little bit embarrassed to say that. I feel as a woman, I'm not supposed to enjoy his cinema, but it was very, very good. I was expecting something a little bit different. I think it felt a little bit restrained in the same way I feel Stanley Kubrick was restrained with Barry Lyndon, actually. So, true story of this nun in 17th century Italy who has religious visions. She gets stigmata, but she's also has a lesbian affair at the same time. Let me tell you, visually stunning, acting amazing, storyline impeccable. You don't know, even as it's being presented to you, just the way other people are skeptical about what's happening. You don't know if she's actually having religious visions. You don't know if she's making it all up. And loved it. Loved it. But also one of the sexiest movies I have ever seen. Like top notch in terms of the erotic tension that is going on. I loved it. I could not stop talking about it. I'm trying to talk to my mom about it, which is a movie, like that's not a movie she would ever watch. She can't handle people getting slapped. Okay, she walked by Barry Lyndon when they're having the fist fight when he first joins the military. Oh God, right? She's horrified by it. This, I was like trying to tell her that she should watch it because I was so into it. So you had said, I think, Andrew, that you think it was the best movie of 2021. Is that correct?
It's certainly in that conversation for me. I had seen it in 2021 when it came out. It
Yeah.
like popped up on Hulu, and I didn't know anything about it, and I just
Yeah.
turned it on, and I was like, "What am I watching? This is." I didn't know it was a Verhoeven movie at the time, and it makes all the sense in the world now.
100%. And I think I told you guys in our chat that way back when boyfriend and I had said we were going to rent movies that we weren't allowed to watch when they came out, and he chose RoboCop and I chose Basic Instinct, and we didn't know that they were both Paul Verhoeven, but it makes a lot of sense that we weren't supposed to see those movies when they came out. I love both of those movies. I love pretty much almost anything that Verhoeven has made. He is not a good person, but I think he's an excellent filmmaker, and I was just blown away. So kudos to you, Andrew. You nailed it on that pick. Tom nailed it on that pick. I had like the best Christmas movie gifts. I feel like I just wonderful experience was had from both of your choices. So thank you very much, because needed to see Witness for the Prosecution anyway. Benedetta had no idea what it was. Loved it. Will rewatch both. 10 out of 10. Thank you.
You were very welcome. I will note that Witness for the Prosecution was a Best Picture nominee in what I defined as the best single year in cinema, 1957, when we did our episode on that. I will also say I have yet to watch a single Verhoeven film, but would you recommend that I watch this with a box of tissues?
Yes. There is a historically accurate dildo that makes an appearance.
So don't watch with my parents.
I mean, Dana
Live
might
tweet.
like it.
Live tweet. Yeah, well, we already saw how well that went with juror number 2, which we'll get to later in the show.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I would recommend it. And as I'm actually intrigued that you haven't seen any Verhoeven, I would
Haven't seen-
recommend.
Basic Instinct?
Or RoboCop?
Nope.
Or Starship Troopers?
Nope. Not Total Recall. Nothing.
Showgirls?
Nope.
Okay, better. Okay, so also
Oh, Showgirls? Okay,
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, forgot he did Showgirls.
Showgirls is so
Yeah.
fun, but Benedetta has so much full frontal female nudity. I'm totally here for it. Glorious. So good. So good. Yes, watch it with tissues or not.
Okay. That will wrap up our gift exchange.
I mean, I'll watch it with you, Tom, because I'll just make you uncomfortable.
Actually, Dana, I think you might actually enjoy it, even just on a watching a film, erotica aside. I think it's a very, very good movie, and you would be missing out if you didn't see it.
Let's just say that I do not and will not understand watching any sort of erotica or porn with other men. Never,
Let alone your father.
Never, ever, never, ever. I had this kid who I kind of had to get along with, who was the basketball coach's son. And let's just say I got along better with his dad than I did with him. But every time he'd come over to our house, would ask me to put on Skinamax. And I'm like, dude, there's like 7 guys here. Why would I want to watch softcore porn with you?
He wanted to watch softcore porn with you, Tom.
Just because you don't know how to use the internet appropriately is not my responsibility.
Imagine the days before internet when porn wasn't readily available and what neighborhood kids had to resort to.
Thankfully for me, I never had to grow up in that world. Unthankfully for my mother, however. Anyway.
And we won't discuss that.
This is all staying in the episode, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Our neighborhood kids, like literally across the street from this window is some bushes. That's where the neighborhood kids would hide the magazines for the other kids to borrow.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.